Hello and welcome to this event on how Birkbeck can support you. My name is Ali and I'm a member of the Access and Engagement team here at Birkbeck. Today I've been joined by some of our student services staff to give you an insight in just how we can help you out throughout your studies and give you the help and support that you need. I'm going to give it a little bit of time so we can wait until some more people join us, but just to give you kind of an idea of why we set up this event. We totally understand that students that come to us through clearing have come a little bit later than other people, and as a result might not have had as much time to prepare for their studies as the rest of the students that are coming to us. So we wanted to set up this event to give you guys a bit of an insight into exactly what the student services departments do here at Birkbeck and how they can support you through your studies. So today I am joined by a number of my colleagues. So we've got Jacob, Amina and Ali. I'll go through them one by one in a minute, but as I say, we're just going to give people a little bit of time to join this live stream. So yeah, just to go through it again, this is going to be recorded and will be available to watch back if you miss anything. And also just to let you know, there is a chat box just down the side of the screen where you can engage with us and ask any questions that you might have as the webinar goes on. We do obviously have a few of the questions that you have already submitted, and a few of them are the kind of frequently asked questions that we get and also my colleagues get in student services. So we'll be going through them after each of our panelists is going to give themselves a little bit of an introduction and also a bit of an insight into what they do. After the event, we will send a follow-up email that's going to have a load of useful links to the kind of things that our panelists are going to speak about. So you don't have to worry about scrabbling to write things down. And as I say, you can always watch this back to give yourselves a bit of an idea of what was talked about. So without further ado, I will going to introduce our panelists for today. So joining me first up is Jacob Neen, who is the Student Advice Deputy Manager. Hello, Jacob.
Hello, Ali. How are you doing?
No, not bad. Thanks, man. And Jacob, if you could just give the viewers a bit of an idea about what it is you do over at the Student Advice Service.
Yeah. So firstly, welcome to everyone who's joining us. In the Student Advice team, we sort of are the department who deal with a wide array of queries and issues throughout your entire student journey. So that's going from the application journey. So if you were requesting information about courses, asking for help with your application, quite typically you come through to student advice through the enrolment process. So providing support and guidance to complete enrolment, and then your entire student journey of student finance, financial support, difficulties with your studies, difficulties with housing and things like that. So every element of the student journey, student advice tends to have some involvement in. So we're a really good resource. If you are unsure where to get help, you're unsure who to speak to, you can approach the advice service and we'll be happy to either deal with your query ourselves or refer you to the most appropriate person. And we're accessible on several different platforms. So you can contact us on telephone, you can contact us on email, you can contact us on an online ask query system, which is sort of like an online platform, a bit like email, but on the My Birkbeck profile. And finally, we'll be having virtual advice centre drop-ins throughout the year, where you can come and have video chats with us to talk about your financial situation.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Jacob. That was very amazingly concise considering all the work that the Student Advice Service do. So it's amazing you managed to fit it into such a small, short spiel. But yeah, having worked directly with you guys in Student Advice, I know that you do a fantastic job for our students. So that is great. I'll be asking Jacob some more questions about what Student Advice do very shortly. So the next person I'm going to introduce is Amina Abdullahi. She is the Wellbeing Services Team Leader, and she also works with Disability Services. So hello, Amina.
Hi, Ali. So my introduction is going to be a bit longer just because there's 3 services need a bit more kind of delving into. So Wellbeing Services at Birkbeck is generally considered like an umbrella term for 3 key services at Birkbeck. and they are the Disability and Dyslexia Service, the Mental Health Advisory Service, and the Counselling Service. But within that, I manage a team of administrators who help kind of do all the administration for those 3 services. So we kind of see ourselves as a bit of the glue that holds the teams together. We're a very large team across wellbeing services. We've got advisors, so both mental health and disability advisors, counsellors, administrators, and as a whole, we kind of work together to support all students across Birkbeck. So kind of as the name suggests, so disability and dyslexia supports any student with a physical or sensory disability, as well as a specific learning difficulty like dyslexia. Mental health advisory service is for students with mental health issues like anxiety, depression, bipolar, any sort of mental health conditions we support students with. And counselling is our flagship counselling service that provides short-term counselling for students in any kind of distress. So yeah, those are sort of the 3 services. They're all sort of self-referral. So as soon as you enroll, you can self-refer yourself to each service that is appropriate for you. And we always encourage students with disabilities to get in touch with us as soon as they can, so that we can help them apply for the Disabled Students Allowance, which is an amazing wealth of support from the government that can pay for equipment, laptop software, taxis, mentors, anything that's going to specifically support you and your condition. So yeah, that's kind of what the wellbeing service that Birkbeck covers, and the sort of support that we provide students here.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. That's, again, like so professional how you guys are doing these introductions. It's very impressive. But yes, thank you very much for that. So that's wellbeing services and student advice covered so far. Finally, it's my colleague Ali Sheldrick. We actually work in the same department in the access and engagement team, but Ali will give you a bit more of an idea of exactly what he does.
Thanks, Ali. Yeah, just a little bit of confusion there with the names, having 2 Alis, so I do apologise for that. But yeah, so I work in the access and engagement team as an access officer. So as a department, my role is a bit different to the people in the team. So we're predominantly geared towards getting students to come and apply and study at Birkbeck. My role is more geared towards helping students as they adapt and they transition onto their new courses. So in a nutshell, it's all about getting you guys as new students to get the best possible start to your studies with us. And that's all about knowing what support and resources are available to you, how to access them, and ultimately so that you can succeed on your programs and come out with a great degree. So I make sure that students know where to go for help with things like study skills, assessment and exam tips, specific learning needs. So I do a lot of signposting to the work of Jacob and Amina and other departments. And what my role is really about, it's not about kind of hand holding or kind of spoon feeding information, but ensuring that new students can independently navigate what is a new learning environment and a new way of studying at university. And I kind of group what I do into 3 main kind of categories, I suppose. So the first thing I do is I guide students around how they can find information and support and resources online. So I don't have too much time to talk about it now as I'm just kind of introducing it, but things like the Welcome to Birkbeck module on Moodle, which is our learning environment. That's a really great place to go and find information that you'll need about things like study skills, about any support you need online. The second kind of main thing that I do is help the students connect with each other. This is a really great resource for finding support. So it's kind of one of the first ports of call is to ask students that you're studying with on your course, but also in a more formal way, I run a mentoring scheme called BBK Chat, which connects second, third and fourth year students, so existing students with new students, as a kind of way to get those existing students to share their experience and tips about everything to do with life at Birkbeck. And then I think the final thing that I do is make sure that students feel comfortable knowing which members of staff to ask for help and support, particularly things like staying in touch with your personal tutors, which I might have a bit of time to talk about later. But yeah, they're the 3 main kind of categories of things that I do. So it's quite a broad role, but it's all about making sure that new students know where and how to access all the support that we have here at Birkbeck.
Brilliant, ideal. So you've had an introduction from all three of our panelists today. It's only right that I give you a little bit of an introduction about what I do. I'm not just a full-time host. I work in the Access and Engagement team as well. My role is with further education colleges mainly. So I tend to work with students that come directly from college into Birkbeck and people who are considered to have non-traditional qualifications. So that is BTECs or access to HE diplomas. So yeah, that's all of us introduced. So we gave you all a link to a survey in which you could give us some questions and submit questions that you were thinking about. And we've also got some frequently asked questions that Birkbeck students often want to ask these services. We will start off again with Jacob and the Student Advice Service. So I'll be asking questions around student finance, around enrolment, lots of the really important things that you will be thinking about right now, and hopefully we'll be able to assuage some of those concerns that you might have. Just another reminder though, that you can use the chat function, which is down, I think, on your right-hand side, if I can get that right. And yeah, definitely pop questions in there if you do have any when Jacob is speaking, but obviously, we may not be able to get time to go through all of them, but if there are any extras once we finish, then we will put them all together in an email and send it out to you. So without further ado, I'm going to start asking some very probing questions of Jacob. So yeah, welcome back, Jacob. And I have been given quite a few questions for you because I think the students that are coming in have got quite a few questions about the big topics. So I'll start off with enrolment. So one of our students has asked about enrolment in saying that I've not been invited to enroll via email yet. When will I get this, and do I need to do anything?
Okay, so firstly, if anyone hasn't been invited to enroll just yet, don't panic. Like, there is still time. We've still got a few weeks. There is that sort of September buzz of trying to get everything in order. And obviously we do want people to enroll as soon as possible, but if you're not there yet, don't worry. So to be invited to enroll, you have had to have met all of your conditions. So you have your academic conditions, which may have been an interview, it may have been a test, or it might have been, they might have been no academic conditions at all. But there are also non-academic conditions. It's the non-academic conditions, which is usually the thing people miss, because they say they've had their interview, they've got their course, and they're like, oh, amazing, I'm done. But you do actually have to supply a proof of your ID, so a copy of your passport, for example, and also confirmation of your highest level qualification. So if you've just recently completed your A-levels, this would be proof of your A-levels, or if you are coming from overseas, it'd be evidence of your overseas qualifications, which have also been translated into English. There are two methods of actually providing us those documentation. You can either email it through to us into our admissions department, or you can actually go onto a My Birkbeck profile if you have one and upload the documents direct. For part-time students, it's the same profile which you would have created when you applied. And for full-time students who have gone through UCAS, you should have been given emails of how to set up a My Birkbeck profile, and you just follow those links and upload those documents. Uploading is the best way, so I would definitely recommend that way. It's the quickest way, it's the less hassle for you and for our admissions team. But once all of those checks have been done, then you'll usually get invited to enroll after a couple of days once everything's been passed and gone through. But if anyone is having any issues with enrolment, you can just give us a call and we can have a look at your documents to see what else is needed.
Fantastic. And obviously we will share all the contact details for the Student Advice Service after the event. A question that just would have come to me off the back of what you just said, Jacob, can students, they don't need to use a scanner or anything, can they take photos, for example, of documents and just upload it that way?
Yeah, that's no problem at all. As long as it's clear and you can read it. So obviously if you've got it on your phone and then let's say you connect your phone on Bluetooth to your laptop or whatever, on a laptop screen, as long as you can read it, then it's good enough. And obviously as long as you're having the whole entire page as well.
Fantastic, brilliant. Okay, so the next question was a follow-up to that, and it was, is there a deadline to enroll?
So there isn't a hard, fast deadline. Eventually, enrolment will close, but we're looking around sometime in November for that to close. So for any of you who are maybe late applicants or you've not been able to get your documents in time, don't worry. You can obviously still start the course. You can still access timetables, even if you've not completed enrolment. But you will get several reminders about it, which if anything will just be a bit annoying. So it's a good encouragement for you to actually complete the enrolment process. But yeah, because the UCAS deadlines have all been extended because of COVID-19, we're looking around November time for enrolment to start closing.
Fantastic, thank you very much. So we're now moving on to your speciality as a student advice service, and something that I've heard you're a little bit of an expert on, and that is student finance. So just to start off with, one of our students have asked, what's the difference between the tuition fee loan and the maintenance loan from student finance?
Yeah, so tuition fee loan is the university's favourite loan because that's what pays us your tuition fees. So obviously, university full-time, you're looking at £9,250 a year. Your tuition fee loan will cover those costs. And that is paid directly to the university. So you don't have to worry too much about it once you've got it approved. The maintenance loan, however, is probably what you guys care more about. And that is for your living costs. So it's paid directly to you in 3 installments at the beginning of each term. And it's designed for things like your rent, your shop, going down to the pub if you're allowed, and all those sort of, basically it's your money essentially, so you can do with it as you wish. But my strong recommendation is remembering that you're getting paid your maintenance at the beginning of each term, which means you have to budget for that entire term. I've been a student myself. It's really hard not to get a bit excited when you get, you know, £3,000 just dropped into your account at the beginning of October. But that is meant to last you for the entire term. So just one thing to consider.
Definitely, I think we've all been there, and we've definitely all overspent when we got excited about our maintenance loan. So budgeting is a very good suggestion. Another student says that, how long will it take for them to get student finance after applying?
So that fluctuates really. At the moment, they're doing a 4 to 6 week turnaround. It's not the quickest process. You've got to send off ID documentation. The office which deal with all of that are obviously dealing with student finance applications across the entire country. So if you're going to be pessimistic of the 6 weeks, obviously you should be applying as soon as possible. However, there are occasions where some people have applied online and it's only been a few weeks. That's some of the lucky ones. But yeah, I would suggest applying as soon as possible, but don't worry if your student finance hasn't come in before the start of term. That's not going to mean you can't study. It's not going to mean that we're going to kick you out. And we will allow you to study for a period of time without paying the tuition fees. You'll just get reminders from us to chase up student finance.
Okay, brilliant. And as you say, like sometimes it can take quite a bit of time because the SFE timelines are quite long. Is there anything students can do to kind of make it as efficient as possible for themselves, like preparing things, or is there anything that you would recommend they do?
So it's about being organised. The applications which take the longest are the applications which aren't sent completed. So they've maybe missed one piece of evidence and then it's taken 4 weeks for student finance to find out that they've missed a piece of evidence, and then they go back and ask for it. And that back and forth is what usually really delays it. So be really meticulous with going through the evidence checklist, which is actually within the form, to make sure you have actually gotten everything you need to get an approved loan. And for the maintenance loan as well, that can be your parent or guardian's income if you're under the age of 25. So in terms of getting evidence about that, get it all together in one place and send it all together as a complete package is usually the best way to get it done.
Great, that's really good advice. You've kind of covered one of the other questions, which was about if there's a delay, can you still attend classes? Which you said yes, you can. It would just be that you'll be getting reminder emails. One of the things that we've been asked about a lot is this financial support that's offered by Birkbeck rather than by Student Finance England. So someone's asked, I've seen that you offer financial support for students on your website. How do I apply?
So we've got a couple of different financial support schemes, but to begin the process of any of those schemes is actually, it starts with enrolment. So on enrolment, they're about halfway through. There is a question of whether you want to be considered for means tested financial assistance. Definitely click yes to this, even if you're not too sure whether you want it or not, just covers your bases. And you'll get asked a couple of little questions about your income, parent guardian's income if you're under 25, or your partner's income if you're living with a partner. This will sort of prepare the system to when these certain financial schemes go live, you will then be contacted by email. If you select no to financial assistance on enrolment, you'll never get contacted. So please make sure you click yes. And then when the relative bursary is open, you'll get an email with, it might be with a link, it could just be with a speak to student advice about the process and the application form. But you can just wait and receive that email, which for the main financial scheme is the Birkbeck Financial Support Scheme. That's due to go live on the first day of term. So look out for your emails on that one.
Grand. We've actually had a question come through on the chat, which, as I've said, keep using, guys. We will try our best to answer all of your questions. And someone has asked, will I have to pay all my fees up front?
So if you're being funded by student finance, then you don't have to pay any fees up front. Again, on enrolment, it's the last step where it asks how you intend to pay for the course. If you select the loan option, you complete enrolment and you don't pay a penny. We then sort of behind the scenes speak with student finance to get your money throughout the year. If, however, you're not getting a student loan and you're lucky enough to have the money to self-fund, you have got payment options. So you can pay for the entire year up front as a self-funder, which if so, tell me your secret. But more commonly what is done is either a termly payment, so splitting the year in 3 and paying at the beginning of each term, or what's more manageable is paying in monthly direct debits of up to 10 months transactions.
Grand, that's fantastic. A question, obviously, which I think is at the forefront of a lot of people's mind at the moment in the current climate is, can I get financial support for the cost of studying online? And can Birkbeck provide any software that I might need?
Yeah, so we're introducing a new fund, which is like an IT support fund for COVID. It's not been 100% finalized, so I'm going to have to be quite general and vague. But essentially, the premise of it is if you are a student on low income and come from a protected category, such as disabled student or a single parent, some things along those lines, you can apply for this IT fund. The process of that will be that you express interest in it and you'd go through a little bit of criteria with student advice and then be sent an application form. We will ask a sort of basic questions of, what are you wanting it for? Like, is it for internet? Is it for a computer? Is it for a particular software which is required and essential for your course? And then there'll be a calculation made to pay you an amount of money. It's not a huge amount of money, so it's not the thousands. You're looking around a few £100s just to sort of support, rather not necessarily cover absolutely everything. Because obviously your maintenance loan, some of that can be fed in towards IT costs. But it is a new fund which is hopefully going live in the next few weeks. But also the other fund I mentioned earlier, the Birkbeck Financial Support Scheme, the fund which sits within that can also take into consideration your costs. Because it measures your expenditure, so things like rent or IT costs in this sense, against your income. So you can also potentially get some funding from that, which is a much larger amount of up to £3,000.
Right, and thank you for making an attempt to explain it, even though it's vague. Like, we know that things are moving very quickly at the moment. So yeah, I'm sure the students will really appreciate just getting a bit of insight on that. So the next thing was, can I get help with paying for childcare whilst I'm studying? I know this might also be something that's a bit more vague because things are yet to be completely finalised, but if you could just give a bit of insight, that'd be great.
Yeah, so childcare is different if you're full-time or part-time. So for full-time students who need support for childcare, you can apply for a childcare grant from Student Finance. They usually require you to be a single parent earning under a certain amount. I think it's around £28,000 off the top of my head, and to be in Ofsted registered childcare. They can pay the childcare provider direct, but obviously there are conversations going on with the childcare providers which are actually open because of COVID-19. So that's an ongoing thing. But for full-time students, speak to Student Finance just to get the final details about the childcare grant. For part-time students, you can't get the grant from Student Finance. However, Birkbeck do have a childcare fund. And we follow pretty much the same rules as Student Finance in terms of single parent and it being in an Ofsted registered provider. The difference though is that we would pay you directly and we can cover up to about 85% of your costs. Well, maximum 85% of your costs. You might be lower than that depending on your income and how many credits you're studying. But in terms of how we assess that with lectures, which we might be talking about later, being online and things like that, that's what's still being confirmed right now. But yeah, we're hoping to finalize that in a week or so. So if you do have follow-up questions, ask me in a week.
Great. And I can see, and I know that a lot of students have got questions about their lectures being online, how long they'll be online, what's the process going to be. Unfortunately, that's something that we can't quite clarify just yet because we're not academics first and foremost, but also we do know that certain subjects will need to have access to campus for say labs and things like that. So it will be, you will get communications from your department letting you know about our COVID safe policy about coming onto campus and also about how that's all going to work. So you should get some quite clear guidance on that quite soon. Continuing on the finance angle, however, one of the questions was, how can I access student discounts on things like uni days?
Yeah, so obviously student discounts are great. Who doesn't like, 20% off Nando's? But you can access things like uni days, student beans, and those sort of things. And you just need a Birkbeck email address because that's how they register you as a student. So once you've completed enrolment, your Birkbeck email address isn't automatic. You actually have to request it on your profile. It's just one of the tabs in the action tabs. Once your username is your email address is generated, you can just go onto the relevant websites, submit the details. They may ask for a copy of your ID card, but usually they just take your Birkbeck email address to verify your account. Shouldn't take too long at all.
Brilliant. Well, that's easy access to the discounts, which is what we like to hear. So I'll give you a break soon, Jacob. Don't worry, there's only a couple more questions for you for the moment. So they've asked a lot, actually. How can students view their timetable?
So the timetable is on your My Birkbeck profile. You're going to hear me say My Birkbeck profile a lot. It's a very important resource. When you log onto your profile, there's a sort of like a few big tiles, and one of them is My Timetable. And you just click that tile and it will show you your upcoming week's timetable. Not all departments are really releasing them just yet. They usually start getting released from mid-September. But what is a really key thing to not forget is it only shows you the first week, but there are date changes right in the bottom corner where you can expand that for the term, the year, the whatever. But yeah, we're hoping they should start getting released from mid-September. But your department should also contact you with like information about induction and things like that. And they can also give you answers relating to your timetables.
Fab. That's a very comprehensive answer, which is excellent. Finally, just before you get a well-earned break, how can Birkbeck's career service help me to get a job after graduating?
Yeah, so within student services, we've got a department called Birkbeck Futures, which is an umbrella term for the Birkbeck Careers and Employability Service and Birkbeck Talent. So careers and employability, they're all about networking, giving you the skills, so interview skills, CV skills, how to upskill yourself and how to sell yourself to a possible employer. And they also do a lot of networking events, bringing in guest speakers, which will be virtually this year, and from all different sectors to obviously talk about how they got into that sector and to give you tips of doing the same. The Birkbeck Talent team, they're our in-house recruitment service. So they essentially have a database which has a list of jobs which and employers which Birkbeck have got some sort of links with. So it could be apprenticeships, it could be just normal roles, it could be volunteer work. they can have meetings with you to sort of find out exactly what is the right fit for you, have a look through their database and try and partner you up with a potential employer. And then the Careers and Employability Service would then do run-through interviews with you to try and get you in the best possible position to succeed in the employment world, because that's one of the main reasons we're all at university. But alumni have access to that as well. So even when you've graduated and 10 years on, you're smashing your career, you can still go back, you can still access our online jobs portal, still do online workshops about how to upskill certain areas and receive the support from their teams.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Jacob, for taking on those questions and giving such detailed and interesting answers. We may well come back to you if we have time, because I know a lot of people are asking questions on the chat. But as I say, we will go to our other panelists first and then answer any questions at the end. If we don't have time, don't worry. What we'll do is we'll make sure that the questions are forwarded on to the relevant panel member, and we'll get answers and useful links sent out to you afterwards. Also, if you're just joining us, welcome. You might be worried that you've missed Jacob's very informative spiel, but you will be able to watch this entire thing back, and we will send out the link to make sure you're able to do that. So yeah, next up, we'll be asking some questions to Amina, who is our Wellbeing Services team leader. You've been very patient whilst Jacob's been talking about finance and all sorts of stuff. So let's get right into it. How can students get support from Birkbeck if they have a disability?
Well, there's two main sort of sources. So there's college-based support, and then there's also government-funded support. So the college-based support is things such as access in our disability service or mental health service. It's the best way to do this is through setting up a study support plan through your My Birkbeck profile. So this is kind of like I suppose like a way for you to share the conditions that you have, how they impact you, and for us to be able to put in reasonable adjustments that can support you whilst you're here. So examples of reasonable adjustments can be extra time in exams. It can be, if you need to be in an exam room by yourself, we can arrange that. If you need to use a computer during your exams, things like that, things that are related to your condition, and will help us be able to enable you to do the best you can on your course. There is also access to the government. I know we might cover this a bit later, but there's a fund called the Disabled Students Allowance, which is run through Student Finance England. It's free government support for students who have any kind of disability that is long-term, so more than 12 months. And yeah, that can pay for a very, very expensive package of supports that can be sort of mentors, equipment, taxis, things like that. So those are the sort of two sort of forms of support that you can access from if you have a disability.
Great, fantastic. To be honest, you've kind of answered one of the other questions as well, which was about DSA. But what you could potentially go into a little bit more detail on is how does it work? How does applying for the disabled students allowance work? It takes a while to get your head around. So there's three main steps. So the first step is actually making the application. So if you have any physical health conditions, so things like ulcerative colitis, any kind of mobility issues, if you've got hearing impairment or vision impairment, if you have any mental health issues and learning difficulties like dyslexia, dyspraxia, those all count as a disability, and those are all things that DSA can pay for. So whilst you might not identify yourself as a disabled person, through the eyes of the law, having the conditions that you have, you're considered a disabled person and can access the support. So the first thing to do is obviously just apply for the Disabled Students Allowance. If you're a full-time undergraduate student, you can just apply through the SFE portal. And if you're a part-time undergraduate, there is a form that you need to complete. But essentially, once you've done that form and you've given the DSA evidence of your conditions, provided that they're happy with that evidence, they will ask you to go for a needs assessment.
it sounds very intimidating, but it is not. It is essentially a meeting with a disability advisor, and they look at the conditions that you're diagnosed with, the course that you're going to be studying on, and they kind of go through all the different steps and make suggestions in terms of software, equipment, and sort of non-medical support. So things like study skills tutors and specialist mentors. What the needs assessor does is, after they've had this discussion with you, they write a report, and in that report they recommend suppliers for each of the different kinds of support. And once they've written that report, they pass it on to you, and they also pass it on to SFE. And essentially SFE will send you a letter saying, here is what we've agreed as per the needs assessment, and it will state all the support that you've got. So it can be, you know, a laptop, it could be mental, it can be sort of all that sort of support. It's important to note that it's not money, but the actual support package can extend £20,000 in sort of support of equipment, software, the specialist mentor. So actually it's a really extensive, massive support that we always encourage students to do. The only cost that you have to make is if you get recommended a laptop, all students have to make a £200 contribution. But if you have a low income, you can ask to be assessed by our funding team, and we can potentially pay that £200. So actually, if you're low income, there is potentially no cost to you. So we always encourage students to apply for the Disabled Students Allowance. And if there's any sort of questions, we can liaise with them and sort of get to the bottom of what's going on with their application.
Thank you. That's really, really, really interesting. Lots of things that I actually didn't know in that answer. So that's great. I'm learning things as we go along. So the next question is, if I'm feeling stressed or anxious about the new term, can I talk to someone from Birkbeck?
Yeah, so you can always call us on sort of wellbeing service. So we're on the same phone line as Jacob's team. We're just the third option. So we can talk to you kind of about what exactly is sort of the source of that anxiety. So are you worried about doing sort of degree level work? Have you been out of, have you not studied it for a while? All those sorts of things. Or is there anything going on in your personal life that you wanted to potentially access counselling for? So we can, recommend things like study skills. So the study skills team they run these amazing workshops on sort of writing essays at degree level, how to sort of plan your work, take advantage of some of the software that we have that can help you sort of work smarter, not harder. If you need to access counselling, we can talk you through the self-referral process and sort of how the counselling service works. And also we can let you know about, who your academic tutor is, your academic department, and also signpost you sort of to the service that Ali manages, sort of Birkbeck Chat.
Brilliant, excellent. You mentioned there the counselling service, and I know a lot of people have questions about how things are going to work in this new term in light of COVID-19. So if, say, a student manages to self-refer and gets an appointment, will these appointments be online?
Mm-hmm. So we've been running our counselling appointments through Microsoft Teams. So students can download Teams, they can download the whole Office package once they enrol, because it's provided to them. And Teams is one of the software that they can use. Essentially, it works like Zoom, and it will be a video call with the counsellor. It's important to note that the counselling is short term. It's 6 sessions per academic year. You meet with one counsellor, and it's the same counsellor for all 6 sessions. So you really get a chance to build a rapport and work with them. And the counselling is sort of video counselling, so it will be done through video call. So it's important to think about kind of the space that you're in. Are you able to have like a private space where you can talk to somebody? But if you face any of these issues, it's always worth emailing us, and we can talk about other options. So we might suggest doing the first session on video, and then the subsequent sessions can be done on telephone. These are all things that we can sort of talk through with the student.
Great. And final question for you for the moment, Amina, before, again, you get a little break. Can you recommend good ways of managing stress about exams and assignments?
I wish we could all get rid of stress. I think it's important to note that stress is like a really natural part of life. It's an unpleasant part of life, but it is normal. And I think it's completely normal to feel stressed about exams and assignments, especially if it's the first time you're doing it. Our counselling team run workshops on sort of managing stress. So they're going to be publishing the dates for the next set of workshops in this academic year. So this is going to be run by a counsellor who's going to talk through some more practical tips on managing stress around the exam period. We also, recommend using study skills, so they can help you with like exam techniques, how to sort of plan your time efficiently in exams. If you have a specific learning difficulty, or you're curious about having if you have a specific learning difficulty, the word is very, very wordy. What we can do is we can talk you through the screening process. So we can screen you for any specific learning difficulties using our screening software called QuickScreen. And the amazing thing about QuickScreen is it not only picks up specific learning difficulties, but any kind of area of difficulty that you have in any sort of grammar, spelling, it can pick up those issues as well. And then we can sort of support you if you do have indicators of having a specific learning difficulty in getting a full assessment by an educational psychologist. If you already have that and you haven't disclosed that to us, it's really worth doing, because we can discuss giving you extra time, solo invigilation, so being in a room by yourself. And above all, I suppose if you're feeling really stressed about exams and assignments, always reach out and speak to us, because it might be a discussion about the course load that you're on, and working around that and potentially sort of reducing or working with your department to come to some sort of arrangement.
That's really good advice. Yeah, definitely. We would all recommend that if you are feeling sort of stressed and anxious about work when you do start here at Birkbeck, there is always going to be someone who will be there to be able to support you, or at the very least point you in the right direction of someone that will be able to help. So thank you so much, Amina, for that. Some really, really helpful answers there. And last but not least, we've got Ali too. The sequel, never as good as the original. And we better move on to your questions. So Ali, is there a way that new students can get help and advice from existing students? I know you mentioned BBK Chat a little bit earlier, but could you give the students a bit more of an idea of how that works?
Yeah, so basically it's a mentoring scheme. So the whole premise behind it is that we pair up new students with existing students. And we do this based on a number of criteria based around students' background and experience. So to get the best kind of possible match as possible, we look at things like the types of services that students have used, the mentors have used. So if a student has used disability and dyslexia services, we pair them up with new students who have also said on their application that they're going to be using those kind of services. And the same with things like childcare, with well-being and counselling and everything like that. So what we do is we do a short survey for applicants, and we gather those kind of details about their background, about what kind of services they might be interested in accessing, the kind of course they're doing, everything like that. And we match them up with a mentor who are trained by us about how to be a mentor. It's a little bit different this year. Traditionally, in most years, you would meet with mentors face-to-face over a coffee. This year, we're going to be doing it online over Microsoft Teams, which is a format similar to Zoom or YouTube Live. It's one of those kind of interfaces that you'll get to learn to use anyway. And you'll meet 3 times over the first 2 terms, just to check in and have a chat and talk about any of the issues that you're facing, any of the services you'd like to access, and you're basically going to get tips and signposting on how to do that. What's really valuable about it, and what's something that it offers that us as staff can't do, is that student perspective. So the mentors that you'll be talking to have trodden that path, and they've successfully passed on to their 2nd or 3rd year, so they know what it's like from your perspective, and that's where it's really valuable. So we're going to do that one-to-one this year online. We're also going to hopefully be doing group sessions. So because places are limited for the one-to-one sessions this year, we'll also be doing group drop-ins based around subject area. So you'll be speaking to a current student who's successfully passed their first year in a kind of group setting, where you'll also get to interact with other students in their first year as well. So the way that you apply to that, is just a short survey, which we're going to send out in a link afterwards to everyone. So you will get that link. The deadline for that is the 6th of October, but try and get it in as soon as you can. And then you'll hear back about whether you've got a place on the one-to-one or the group session sometime soon after the 6th of October.
That's fantastic. And that is an invaluable service. So it's so helpful to hear from someone who's been through it all already, and it's really, really nice to kind of get their perspective on things. It might be a unique year this year, but they know Birkbeck and they'll be able to give you some really helpful advice on that.
That's a really good point as well. So the mentors this year will have been studying online during last term. So this year, more than any, it's going to be really valuable for that, because that's something that from a student perspective, no one really as a staff member would have experienced. So so do apply, and you'll get the link afterwards.
Grand. Fantastic. So a lot of the students that we ask questions of said that they're worried about studying online, which I think is very, very common. They've kind of asked generally, how can they prepare themselves and kind of get ready for the coming year?
So again, I mentioned it in the introduction, but I think the first port of call for this and for anything relating to getting used to studying at Birkbeck in general is the Welcome to Birkbeck module on Moodle. So Moodle is the online learning platform that Birkbeck uses. It's where all the information to do with courses is put on. It's where reading lists are, links to the teaching events, everything like that. So you access it through My Birkbeck. So log on to My Birkbeck and you should be able to find the link there to Moodle. And you should automatically be enrolled onto this Welcome to Birkbeck module. So it's been set up this year specifically to help students get used to what is a new learning environment in terms of learning online. So there's a whole section dedicated on that module with a video talking about the different kind of software that we use, how to access it, how to get the best out of interacting on those platforms. So it's a really comprehensive and detailed guide on there to help you do that. The other thing that I would also flag, and it's listed on the module, but I'll say it now as well because it's coming up fairly soon, is our learning and development tutors have set up a workshop based on specifically on reading lectures and note taking online. So if you look on there for the date for that, I'll also send out a link afterwards, but that's a live event similar to this, which will talk to you about how to get the best out of learning online.
Brilliant. Brilliant. It's again, we've got an excellent learning and development team who have spent their summer tirelessly putting together support resources for students to use our online platform. So yeah, we're very, very lucky in that respect. So the next question for you, Ali, would be, what would you recommend to help students get the best out of their lectures and seminars at Birkbeck?
So again, the Welcome to Birkbeck module is going to have a list of resources and links to interactive resources about how to do this. It's a really important skill. It's a new skill for many of you, I'm sure. It's something that is generally different about university in terms of what's demanded of you. It's usually a less structured learning environment, so involves a lot of independent studying. And one of the biggest differences there is the need to kind of pre-read before you go to your lectures, or before you tune into your lectures and seminars. So yeah, again, look at the Welcome to Birkbeck module in terms of the guide for that, but preparing and pre-reading is one of those key skills. You'll find out more about it there. And again, our Get Ahead, Stay Ahead workshops from the learning development tutors also have a specific workshop which talks all about how to do that as well. We'll send out the links for the date of those. There's one coming up this Saturday, and they'll be repeated as well throughout the month. So yeah, so do look at those resources and we'll send out the link.
Great. And obviously another of the great resources we have at Birkbeck is the library. And we have had a few questions about the library. So Ali, someone has specifically asked, can I come onto campus to use the library, or is everything online?
So there is actually news about this today. So the library will be reopening on Monday, so Monday the 14th. It's going to be very different because of social distancing rules. There's only going to be 200 study places in the actual library, and you do have to book online. Again, we are going to send out a link for the information on how to do this. You can book 2 days in advance and no sooner. So do bear that in mind, because it might be quite popular. We don't know how much demand is going to have for that. But starting from Monday, there is going to be the opportunity to go into the library and have a study space, obviously with all social distancing measures and precautions in place. That's the reason why it's taken this long, is to make sure that is safe for everyone to be there. And also why we've got limited places. So yeah, have a look out for the link on how to book your place for that next week. Having said that, most of our resources are online in terms of books and articles that you'll need. So check out the library website where you can search for any of the articles or books that you need. You can find out whether you need to actually go in to get a hard copy or not. You can also click and collect books if you need a physical copy. If there's only physical copies, or you'd prefer that, you don't have to actually go in and look around the library itself. You can just order online through the link and go and collect them if you need a hard copy as well. So whether it's online, whether you're just going to collect a book, or now whether you'd like to go and have a study space, the library is operating almost on a normal basis. So whichever way you need to access it, you'll be able to do so.
Brilliant. Well, I think as we all know, the library is a really, really vital resource for students as they're studying. And as you say, the fact that it's getting back to a sense of normality is going to be really helpful. But as Ali touched upon, the health and safety of our students is always going to be our priority. So yeah, as he said there, the library's been set up with all the social distancing in mind, so people can have that peace of mind when they come in and study with us. So the final question for you, Ali, is what is a personal tutor, and how can I contact them?
Yeah, so every student at Birkbeck is allocated a personal tutor, and they're an academic member of staff. So a lecturer, a professor, who is there as your kind of designated contact for all matters relating to your academic progress. So you can go and talk to your tutor or email your tutor about things like your choice of modules, options on your course in terms of where you go as you progress through your course, study skills related things, so difficulty meeting deadlines, tips on exam revisions and all kinds of study concerns, tips on assessments, things like referencing, which may be new to you, and just generally about your progress in terms of where your academics is going, and pointers around any kind of personal problems that might be affecting your study. Your personal tutor is there to kind of signpost where you can get help for that. So how you contact them, or how you find out who your personal tutor is that will be available on My Birkbeck. So when you log into My Birkbeck, you'll be able to find who your personal tutor is and their contact details. And the best way to get in touch with them, I'd say, is just to send them an email asking possibly for a meeting. It could well be over Microsoft Teams. But your personal tutor's job is to be there to answer any concerns you have. It is a kind of an onus on you as a student to get in touch with your personal tutor when you have issues. So that's something that's really key, is that your personal tutor is not going to be constantly getting in touch with you, asking about your progress necessarily. They are meant to do that a couple of times a year, but what you have to do is know that it's their job to respond to you as your issues arise. So do get in touch with your personal tutor should any issues relating to your academics arise. Brilliant.
And it's important to point out as well that whilst we are all on YouTube at the moment, a lot of instructional videos and things have been posted to the Birkbeck YouTube channel. So in fact, there is one about how to access your personal tutor and other things like that. So definitely spend some time on the YouTube channel, just having a look around at the resources that have been created, because they are really, really helpful. And sometimes it's a lot easier to watch a video than have to read through like lots and lots of text. So that's great. Thank you so much, Ali, and thank you to all of our panelists who answered questions today. I know that there have been some questions in the chat. Quite a few of them have already been answered by our very helpful our sort of chat fairies that have been going through and answering your questions. So thank you again to them for their help. One thing I did pick up on, and I'm not 100% sure if it was answered, so I will ask Jacob this question, is that I believe somebody asked if they haven't, if they've gone through their enrolment and they forgot to check the box that said they're interested in financial support, how do they go about making sure that they know that they would like this?
So you need to tell the student advice team, but you need to put it in writing. So don't call us and tell us, but if you email or submit an ask query, just confirming I do want to be considered for means tested assistance and quote your student number, we'll be able to update the records so that you get contacted when the bursaries go live. Great.
And one other thing that I saw was somebody asked that whereabouts in my Birkbeck do they request their email address?
So when you log into your My Birkbeck profile, in the top right corner, you've got sort of a menu icon. If you select that, it's got a sort of like a list, and there should be one of my profile, and then it's my user and email account.
Fantastic. Well, I know that, yes, there are some questions that have been asked in the chat, and if there are any that haven't been answered by either our panel or by the people in the chat themselves, then we will make sure that we send a follow-up email to everyone who signed up for this event and make sure that we've got some helpful advice and links that will be sent out with that. So all I can really do now is thank all of our panelists. Thank you to Jacob, Amina and Ali for all their help today and for all the really, really useful information that they've given out. Just to give you guys another heads up, I've said it a few times now, but we will be sending a follow-up email with lots of useful website links to help you do some of the things that we mentioned in the panel today. And we're also going to involve a link to this very video, which will be saved. So if you feel like you've missed any of it or you had to duck out or anything like that, you'll be able to watch the whole thing back. And as far as I know, the chat function will also be there. So you'll be able to see the questions answered in real time. So yeah, thank you all so much for coming and watching this and taking time out of your day to watch us talk about student services at Birkbeck and how Birkbeck can support you. And as I said, thank you to all of our fantastic panelists, and hope you all have a lovely evening.